So I was actually going to do the Silent Hill series for the second test tier list, but I forgot that there's like 3 games that are supposed to be on the works, so I was like, nah, I'll save those for later. Instead, we're going to be doing Serious Sam, a series which I, for the most part, love, but I don't know anybody to join me on this because I don't know anybody else that's really played it. I'm going to be counting the HD remakes and the originals as one, though I will touch up on those. I'm not going to talk much about the VR remakes, but this will include both the indie series and the main games. So to start it off, Serious Sam 1. I actually didn't play these 2 games, or really any of the games, until the HD versions came out, and looking back at the originals, they're pretty butt ugly, I gotta say. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the HD versions because there's some balancing changes, to which I could say, just play the Fusion version. Like, it compiles all the games into one, and changes the classics to, or the HD versions to be more like the classics, but honestly, I prefer playing the vanilla HDs. But anyways, it's the first game honestly just kind of really got me hooked on this series. Its gameplay is very fun, and really the only wave shooter done right in my opinion. Without being, what you call it, bleh, words escaping me. Horde mode. But the level progression was fun. There's a lot of secrets, some interesting one-liners, although they did fall off for a while in the middle. There's a decent variety of enemies. The music was great, and for that alone, I'm gonna give it an A tier. Honestly, just the only issue I really have with it is the fact that you're in Egypt the entire time, and some of the later midpoint levels can be a bit of a slog, like Luxor is a nightmare. And that's also when the music just goes from being interesting to just annoying little bongo drums in the background. Any case, moving on to 2, the second encounter. I'm going to go against the grain here. This is where I start having my hot takes, which I didn't really do in the Advance Wars one. I think the Serious Encounter is pretty damn overrated. Now, I will say it's a good game, and it's a decent follow-up, but its flow is just, that isn't as good as the first one to me, and a lot of the music is pretty dull. The mid-campaign, the Babylonian one is just, like, really boring, so that just leaves the European and Aztec parts, and even the Aztec part, the first 2 levels are just, like, filled with death traps more than anything else. It ends on a high note, I will give it that. That's got like one of the last final levels in the entire series. And it does have its share of a better set of one-liners to go with it. But just the fact that the Mesopotamian part is just like boring as all hell, and it just feels more like an expansion pack than an actual sequel, I'm putting it in B. Good game, but really overrated. Now, next is the next encounter. Boy, that didn't flow off the tongue well. This was a last-gen exclusive to consoles. The GameCube and the PS2, more specifically. I don't think there was an Xbox version for this one. I do wish it had gotten a PC port, but probably wouldn't have worked as well because its console... its console... what it had to give up to be done on those consoles just, like, really shows. It's a good game, but it's really rough around the edges. Music is really repetitive. It's kind of ugly to look at. There's some good one-liners here and there. The story is kind of goofy, even by Serious Sam standards, which didn't really even have barely much, any of a story in the first 2 games. But still, there's quite a bit of content. I also don't like how they chopped off, like, a third or a fourth of the levels out of the main campaign and set them into unlockable levels that you play standalone. Like, some of them I can get cutting, but some of them just, like, felt like it just interrupted the flow, like when they cut the submarine level out. But it's better than them not being there at all, but I really wish they just, like, kept them in the main game. But it's for its concessions and that, and both cutting levels out, I'm going to put it in C. Still worth playing, though. Now, this one, on the other hand, ooh, this one's rough. I think Climax is the developer of this, the same people who made those 2 mediocre Silent Hill games. This was actually a GBA first-person shooter. I will say it's better than that Medal of Honor Underground demaster. But, okay, first-person shooters could have worked on the GBA. As a matter of fact, the Duke Nukem game was fairly decent, but this one, for whatever reason, they opted to use a password system, and there's a live system in combination, so if you die, guess what? Gotta start over. Either start over completely or try to remember that long-ass password. It also doesn't help that it's maybe like 2 hours long, which I guess is okay for a portable, but also combined with the fact that the frame rate just absolutely chugs, I'm putting that in D. There's not much reason to play it. The Egypt levels are just a retread. The Rome levels are kind of okay, but it's just not very fun to play. It's unfortunate because that's the only... I don't even know if I'd call that a mainline game. It's not part of the indie series, but ugh, it's not pretty. That game really could have used a remake. Now, here's the divisive one. And here's where I have a real hot take. serioussam 2, considered to be the black sheep of the series. Partially because of the concession. Like Next Encounter, it did have to make concessions because this was also released on consoles. But unlike Next Encounter, it was also on the PC. However, I can say the PC version is better. It does have some issues with bugs, but I gotta say it's a good looking game, even by today's standards. A lot of people got turned off by its cartoony visuals, and honestly that pisses me off more than anything else. It's just because something's cartoony doesn't mean it's bad. It might go against the tone of the first few games, but who the hell cares? It's fun to play. The story is pretty damn goofy. I gotta knock it for that one a bit, but like does anyone actually play these for the story? Like, I'm invested in the story, I will admit, but it's not why I play it. However, the comedy I really enjoyed. It's definitely more slapstick than just the simple one-liners of the earlier games, but it does it well enough to where I don't care. The only real nick I got to agree with the naysayers on is that it starts off pretty slow. The first planet, there is a couple of good levels in it, but the majority of it's just boring. But once you get past that first planet, it really starts picking up. I also don't like how the plasma rifle is like only available on the second and final planets. But that's honestly more of a nitpick. The weapon variety is what you still can see in most of these games, though I gotta say it's a bit weird that the revolving shotgun feels more like a rifle than a shotgun. The only thing other thing I really have to knock it on is the fact that there is a live system, but you do get more to have your lives reset as you go, so it's not really a big deal. It's not like Advance where you have to consistently maintain those lives, and if you die, you have to start completely over. If you run out of lives, you just have to start the level over instead of at a checkpoint. I've never had a situation where I've game overed because of lives. I've died plenty, but I've never flat out lost all my lives. And even still, there's a save system, so again, I think that was more of a concession for the console that just got slipped into the PC, but guess what? For all of you haters, that's my S rank. I love this game. That's the game I always enjoy most when I replay these games, and I have replayed these games a lot. Probably the only shooter I've replayed more than this would be Half-Life 1 and the Fear games. And Call of Duty 1. Well, Call of Duty 1, 2, and 4, but yeah, you get my point. For those who passed it up, I thoroughly encourage you to give it a second chance. And for those who have not played the series, make sure you get it with the main game, with the other main games, even though it's set to be retconned out with the remake of Serious Sam 2. Well, it's not even a remake, it's a reboot, or reimagining, I guess. I'm not looking forward to how that one turns out. Serious Sam 2 will probably be the one I consider the real Serious Sam 2, even when that remaster comes out. Okay, now another game that was a bit of a black sheep, Serious Sam 3. This one also got ragged on a bit for making console concessions. I will say it does, like Serious Sam 2, it does start out pretty slow, since the first city stage and the museum stage are pretty slow, but I kind of like how the city stages do have a decent variety in the layouts and what you're looking at, even though if it is Egypt, it's modern Egypt this time instead of ancient. But the second half of the game opens up and it starts to become more like the classics. You don't see much of the gray soldiers as much. And then the Jewel of the Nile DLC was pretty nice, as it gives you access to weapons that were kind of cut out apart from secrets, like the laser and the sniper, and there's another jetpack session. Even if it is short, I think it should have been... I do wish they had added the Jewel of the Nile to the main game, because the main game also felt a bit short, but I enjoyed the combat. The final boss was pretty cool, even if it is a bit tedious. The music was pretty decent. Doesn't have as good a soundtrack as Serious Sam 2, but it did hit well. It looked pretty alright, and what can I say? I really don't have that much complaints about it, even as much as the diehards will bitch and moan about some of the modernizations like the sprinting and the reloading for certain weapons, but you know what? It was balanced well for it. It goes in the A rank. Now, next we move into some of the indie games. D XXL is an action platformer run and gun, like a bit like the Contra games. Though, unlike that, it's not a take a one hit and you're dead type of ordeal. This one takes place after the ending of 2, but it's not canon, so you don't have to worry about that. They did do something interesting, and the fact that you combine multiple guns to make one big gun, kind of like that one old Simpsons episode where they talk about how to turn one gun into 5 guns. That's basically this game personified. The level design is pretty alright. There's some goofy slapstick in it. But the problem is it's not as fun as it could have been. There are really some dry parts of the level design. Boss fights were pretty dull. But I don't know where I kind of want to put this one in low B, but this one's really hard to go back to. The first playthrough was fun, but the second time I played it, it was kind of like, yeah, it's alright. I'm gonna put it below first encounter, or next encounter, because next encounter I can go back and enjoy. This one was just kind of a one and done. Kamikaze Attack. This was actually a mobile game, but I'm including it in the list because it was ported to the PC. It's a very, very simplistic game. Honestly, it should have stayed on mobile apart, but I guess maybe it was better as ported because, as far as I know, the mobile version is completely incompatible with new phones. You basically just play as a Kamikaze Attack and just tap the buttons to jump over enemies until you reach Sam and then blow them up. Very simple. There's no story to it, and it gets repetitive quick. There's a fair amount of stages, but once you play a few, you played them all. I'm not going to put this into F because it's kind of fun to just pop it out and play it for a few minutes, which again would have suited a bit more well on the mobile than the PC. And the concept is kind of goofy, so I'll put it under the Game Boy Advance game. And now next we have, this game. Ooh, this game was one of the worst in the indie series, and honestly, and overall. The Random Encounter. I thought this game was going to be an RPG, and I guess it kind of is. It's this top-down view while you're on the map, but once you get into a combat, it turns into this weird pseudo turn-based, real-time turn-based. Hard to describe. I guess it's a bit of a bullet hell with some light RPG mechanics. The patterns of your units use are basically determined by the weapons you give them, which is an interesting mechanic, but unfortunately it does this thing where the more random encounters you hit on a map, the harder it gets. So you can't spend too much time on the map looking for items, or you just get overwhelmed, which I guess is one way to keep it moving forward, but unfortunately it can cause you to miss some really important stuff. That, combined with the fact that it's only like an hour and a half long, and the ending is basically a complete non-ending, never mind the story itself is really bleh. I would put this in F tier, but the fact that it did something different, I'll spare it that and put it at the bottom of D. I did not enjoy my playthrough of that game at all. Okay, the Greek encounter was apparently an exclusive made for a pack of indie games sold on a specific site, but when that site went down, this game was lost to time. I didn't know about it until well after that happened, and I have not seen anybody that has it. I haven't seen it anywhere on alternative sites, quote unquote. So, not played. As far as I know, I did see it on YouTube. It's basically like 3 or 4 levels, a top-down shooter, but it was blatantly thrown together just to be like a stocking stuffer. So I probably would have put that in F tier even if I had played it. Now, The Last Hope is a VR game, exclusive, unlike the other VR games, which is just ports. I didn't really care that much for this one. This is one of those earlier VR games that you just stand in one place and shoot at enemies, because this is before they figured out how to do movement. But even then, this came out at the tail end of those stand in one place wave shooters that plagued early VR. And what's even worse is it was an early access first. It's a short game too, and the story starts like off taking place way before even 4. But then the story just falls off, so it was just like that combined with the fact that it has a non-ending. It's just like, what was even the point of that? It's pretty damn difficult, so it's good for a score attack, but that's about it. It's not overtly bad like these games, so I'll put it in C tier, but it's lower than Double D, since I can't even go back and play that. I would honestly, as far as VR goes, just say play the ports, even if they do have a slew of their own issues. I would only just even encourage getting that one just for the sake of completionism. Just see what they did kind of for those early VR shooters. The gunplay is pretty alright though. Now next we have Bogus Detour, another one in the indie series. Now, unlike the Greek encounter, which again I only saw on YouTube, but it looked boring as hell, this was a top-down shooter done right. There's quite a bit of content. Supposedly this one takes place in the middle of seriousam's second encounter, I think. Story doesn't really matter either way, but it's a pretty dynamic game. The combat works pretty well. The rolling mechanic does help you mitigate what would have made it harder for this type of game. The biggest issue I have with this is the stupid mines, which you have to get close and then roll away to detonate. Now, it would have been fair if they were like just guard secrets, but there are some levels where they're just all over the damn place. But I want to say there's an option to like no, I take that back. There is a mod to workshop mod to mitigate it a bit. But even with the stupid mines, it is a fun playthrough. Once you finish the main game, there's survival modes to play through. There's quite a variety of weapons, including a few secret ones. Pretty good music, great pixel art. I'm giving it the B tier. Not quite as good as maybe the second counter, even though, again, as I said, overrated, but better than the more mid games. Now, Tormental was an interesting one. That one came out before 4 did, but it was in development hell for quite a while. in early access, so I didn't play it until late last year. At least I think it was late last year. Maybe it was more mid last year. But anyways, I picked it up when it finally came out, and the problem is it's a roguelike. And not only is that, but it's one where we have to play through multiple loops, much like I hate running backwards, and ooh, I'm going to get into that one later. It took me a while to complete one loop, but when I saw I had to keep going to unlock everything, at that point I was just like, I'm just done with you. It was fun for a little bit, fun in short bursts, but this should not have taken as long as it did to come out of early access. I'm putting it a D, but I will say it's better than these games since it can actually be fun. Now, 4, this was a game I think was treated unfairly. It was rough when it came out, I will admit that. Though I didn't play it until a couple days later when it had gotten its early patching, so it was actually stable. My issues with 4 is just the fact that A, it drags on a little too long, and B, the writing is just atrocious. Like, the one-liners are mediocre, there's way too many cutscenes, and 3 I will appreciate because I think 3 had the perfect balance between story and gameplay. It didn't interrupt you as much, and when it did, it didn't last very long. 4, on the other hand, is constantly interrupting, and the supporting characters are all atrocious. Even like some of the returning ones were changed to be annoying as all hell. But I don't want to dwell too much in the writing since a lot of that can be skipped. On the gameplay side, one thing I do have to note is I don't like how it has a side quest system, but all you get for that are a couple of single-use gadgets for the most part, or early unlocks to some weapons. Like, I think the second side quest you get gives you early access to the assault rifle, which early access is fine, but the gadget ones, like, man, you have to go through a lot just to get through a couple of, like, cool grenade types. Some of them are pretty useful, like the nuke or the gravity bomb, but others like the decoy are just like, why did I have to do a side quest for this? And then there's the vehicle levels. Like, the first France level is just like drags on for so long, just driving around a motorcycle in an empty forest. Though recently I think it has been patched to where there's enemies now, which I have not played that version of that, so I don't know if that's better or worse. But again, I think this game was treated really unfairly. And I'm going to give it a B tier. Because it is fun. I would put it higher, but I also do have to nick it a bit for that marketing stunt of the Legion system. But you only see it in the very first and last levels. But maybe that's for the better, because I don't think fighting a bajillion enemies at once would have been fun. Oh, and that final boss is just absolutely atrocious. Now, this is a kind of an interesting case. Siberian Strike, or was it Siberian Strike? Well, anyway, the Siberian game was essentially a fan mod, but it was officially endorsed, kind of like how Black Mesa is for Half-Life. So you can buy it. It basically takes the serioussam 4 engine and everything about it and improves it to where it's actually quite good. There's NPCs again, but they don't yap as much, and there's not as many cutscene interruptions. The progression's pretty well done. Music's pretty good. The story is alright, though I don't like the fact that it was set to be like an interlude game, but then the ending kind of turns it into this weird thing where it's like it might as well just been, oh, it was a dream this whole time. Still, I gotta give the guys credit. They made it about as good as any of the actual Crytek games, or Crow Team games. Honestly, I would even say it was better than both 4 and Second Encounter. I'll put it at the bottom of A. The biggest issue of that, again, it was kind of short, and once again, there's vehicle sections that really shouldn't have been there. Oh boy. I wish I could end the video on a good note, but then we have to cover a little game called I Hate Running Backwards. Oh boy, oh boy. No, you do not go in there. You could debate on whether or not this even counts as a Serious Sam game, since it's not. GameFAQs doesn't even have it as part of the list, and I think it's more of a kind of a crossover thing. But Sam is the main character of it, and it does have a lot more from the Serious Sam games than it does from others. Basically what it is it's a bullet hell, but the problem is it's a roguelike bullet hell. So not only is it randomized everything, which would have been fine if it was on mode, but if you take 3 hits, you're dead. Or however much too many hits the character selected can take, you're dead, and you have to start the run completely over. There's 5 stages, and then the really prolonged final boss, so a run can be pretty short, but it's hard as all hell. I got to the final boss, killed it, saw it had another phase, died, and was like, I'm not playing this anymore, I'm done, I've seen everything. Not only that, the graphics are that ugly, blocky 3D Minecraft shit. I just cannot say anything good about this game. It's ugly, all the sound and music are rehashed, the character crossovers are stupid, the balancing sucks, it's short, it's a roguelike, so guess what, if I die after... I've never liked the idea of having everything randomized and having to restart if I die. And this game, unlike, say, other games where you'll carry over stuff to help make it a little bit easier each time until you finally get that ultimate victory, this game gives you practically nothing apart from unlocking characters, and some of them can be damn tedious to unlock, and it's arguable whether or not those characters are even better than the default one. So yeah, you can say get good all you want, to me it's just not fun. F tier it goes. I wish I could say something good about it. I wish I could end this on a bit of a high note, but thanks, I Hate Running Backwards, I hate you. But despite my negativity on ending this, I fully recommend for anyone who likes shooters to give this series a try. If you like boomer shooters, especially, well, it's not technically a boomer shooter. They are, outside of the ones that change genres like Double D, they are at the core boomer shooters, even if they are more wave-based. And if you've gotten tired of playing modern shooters, need to change the pace, or if all you've played of modern shooters and never really got a chance to play some older FPSs that are more focused on just killing as much as you can with a kick-ass soundtrack in the background, then this is the one to go to, because unlike, say, Duke Nukem, you don't have to spend a lot of time key hunting or switch hunting, which is something that kind of hurts a lot of those classic ones. Though if you do like that kind of thing, then I don't know if it's for you. But either way, fans of old or new shooters, I recommend it. Definitely, you can pick these games up in the Serious Sam collection, which tends to go on sale, which makes it even more of a deal, because when I bought it, I got all of them except for 4, Bogus Detour, Siberian, and obviously the 2 console exclusives, and Tormental for like $9, and that includes the Jewel of the Nile DLC, as well as the DLC. Oh yeah, one more thing I gotta touch on is the HD remakes. I would recommend, if you're not gonna get the Serious Sam pack, I would recommend getting the Gold Edition for the HD remakes, which I don't remember if they even sell on Steam anymore separately, but if you get get the Gold Edition or whatever it's called, you'll get something. Not only will you get both games in one, but it'll give you the option to play all of Serious Sam HD 1's levels in Serious Sam 2 HD, not having the need to have both games installed at once. So you can just play both games in one installation, and it'll give you access to exclusive DLC set that was made for the HD games that comes with 3 levels, much like Jewel of the Nile, which is hit or miss. The first 2 levels of it are fun, but the third one's a total slog. But hey, I can't say no to 3 extra levels. And more one-liners, but that last 3rd level would be quite a challenge for those looking for an extra difficulty. So, again, if you're just going to get first and second encounter HD, make sure you get the gold version, but I would recommend picking them all up in the serioussam collection. And honestly, it might have been updated to include Siberian and 4 now, and Bogus Detour, but I could be wrong. Though I'm pretty sure it won't include the VR game, but I don't know. Either way, all of these games except for Next Encounter and Advance are available on Steam, and they do go on sale frequently. There's a couple games that you can pick up on consoles, like I Hate Running Backwards in 3. But yeah, get them while it's hot, because I guarantee you it's a good time. And the next tier list, I'm thinking will be Animal Crossing with a friend of mine. Until then, later.